Hi, welcome back to the MBN Boston Data Podcast. Today we're looking at a challenge most organizations face. There's more data than ever before, but turning it into meaningful decisions is still where many fall short. To explore this, I'm joined by Chris Mitchell, Head of Data and Marketing Operations at Sky Business. Over the past 20 years, Chris has led data and marketing transformations at Sky and across leading WPP agencies, helping organizations put data at the heart of their decision-making. As Head of Data Marketing and Operations at Sky Business, he leads a team of data analytics and marketing professionals, harnessing the power of data to enhance customer engagement, drive incremental revenue, and embed a data-driven culture within the organization. Prior to the role at Sky, Chris held leadership positions at VMLY&R, GTB, Wunderman, where he successfully managed multi-channel data strategies, CRM integrations, and award-winning marketing campaigns for top-tier brands. In this conversation, you'll hear why data must be treated as a business asset rather than just reporting tools, practical ways to make insight part of everyday decision-making, and how to break down silos between teams. We'll also discuss why marketing operations has become the growth engine, how to cut through the MarTech clutter, the real role of AI automation, and why culture is every bit as important as technology. Chris, thanks again. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on board. Thought it'd be great to go straight into the topic, but at the same time too, like maybe just to make a quick introduction yourself, because I'm always keen for people like yourself to talk about where you come from, what got you into data and marketing, and what's helped shape your career so far in that space.
Thanks, Josh. Pleasure to conduct this podcast. I think like when most people, certainly at my level, I fell into this. I didn't seek out a data role. When I came out at uni, my aspirations were to be a film director. I was working on music videos from anywhere from, I don't know, Omar to Jamiroquai back when I first got out of college. And then fell into, I think, publications, advertising my first sort of role of using data per se, but using data for the prospecting, essentially, before I then got into, what can we do with this data? There's profiling opportunities, there's segmentation opportunities. Back in those days, when I first came into the industry before the internet, it was very much the large organizations using the electoral roll to mail postcodes. Some people will still remember receiving a large catalog on their mat and ordering various types of items, CDs, to get onto the internet. And then you had this sort of credit card explosion that every other week a financial institution was offering you a credit card of some description with 0% interest. And that's where you started to see how data could really be used to identify opportunities, from the segmentation to identifying affluence in postcodes. Organizations like CACI were developing Acorn, Experian was developing or had developed Mosaic. So you had a real sort of flavoring of the different types of people that you could reach, ABC, ones, social economics, and all that information was just starting to be used effectively by organizations. And then as we move into the sort of the digital age from the early 2000s, as the internet took off and people started using email for communication, you saw a drop off of DM as people could reduce their costs significantly by doing email or undertaking email, and then moving into digital marketing. So all of a sudden you had more digital activity going on. You could really target people based on their digital behavior. Then you had Facebook. Some people might even remember MySpace at that time. And there was a lot of excitement during that particular time about how we could utilize that data. Although the channel was quick, fast, and efficient, we couldn't quite marry up the online data with the offline data. So there was this whole online audience that everybody was getting really excited about. But actually, how much did you know about them at that early stage? Not a lot. Until we got into more sophisticated tools, Facebook started obviously collecting more information and started to know more about the consumer. That's when it started becoming really effective, a really effective tool. And here we are today using both offline and online, and still using outbound telemarketing for effective marketing activity. Now we've got a different type of digital asset, which is AI, which is obviously changing the face of marketing and how we use it effectively going forward.
It's quite interesting how you mentioned offline and online. I think we had conversations years ago. I was definitely introduced to yourself maybe a decade ago when you were at GTB alongside John Dorsey. So I was working with you guys at GTB, and very early in my career, and probably the first marketing and media agency I actually worked with and supported in hiring web analytics professionals. And I think there was, I don't know about what your thoughts are. It seemed that industry seems to not be as prolific or abundant as it used to be, that space. And I don't know if that's to do with the blending between online and offline or the advent of new technologies. I remember even working, and this was probably around the 2015, 2016 time, social media analysts as well. Another team used to hire for them, and I don't think I've ever seen one of them in the last 7-8 years. Do you think, is there any reason why to attribute why there might be like less of those specific individuals in data now compared to several years ago?
I think very simply, whereas before it used to be quite siloed as a skill set, people have had to change, and now there's many different facets to a data scientist or a web analytics coming in, because it isn't just about the one journey. And so previously we would go, okay, can you give us the web metrics? We go to a web analyst. Can you give us the offline data? How many calls have been made? You go to somebody who's on a data analyst side of things. Can you give us how many sales have been generated this quarter or this month, this week, etc.? You go to a BI analyst. All of those particular skill sets now have become blended. We don't want to see it as separate reports. We want to read it as one particular report. So I don't think the person has gone away. I just think the skill set is now blended into one person who will then cross all of those particular aspects for measurement, insight, in order to produce their report, so that it's all in one place. And it can make more sense in that particular aspect, I think, because then you can see the correlation between, my marketing, because that lovely word of attribution modeling has been around for 20 years, and organizations are still chasing nirvana on how do I attribute my marketing most effectively. But that all together under a analyst makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think I agree. It used to be like hyper specialist, like vertically aligned individuals within analytics roles. They still do exist to a certain degree, but it's not as numerous now. I think there's a lot less, and I think you're right. I think there's a lot more generalist requirements now, but probably for the better, I think, for organizations and for individuals too, because there's nothing worse than pigeonholing yourself in the industry. And there's some industries I work in where they haven't changed in 15 years. Digital analytics, web analytics, same thing, really. Social media analysis, marketing analytics, marketing effectiveness. It is moving and shifting into that AI space as well too. I just want to get back on track. I want to talk about the organizational and business growth and the use within data. So why do you think data is more critical to business growth now than ever before?
I think very simply, every organization now has basically seen the value of data grow. And organizations where they are not paying attention to their data, and again, you still have people who still need to be educated about the value of data, what it can do for the business from that perspective. But I think what you can see is very much a return on the investment of data. Very simply, those three sort of lovely statements or words that people used to go: recency of purchase, frequency of purchase, monetary value. RFM modeling is still as important today as it was when it first came out, when I was being introduced to it 20 years ago, because it gives us an indication of future purchasing behavior. How can we ensure that person stays with us? What do we need to do to create improved dialogue? What can we do to upsell? What can we do to cross-sell? The more information that we have about that particular consumer, the stronger that we will have as a proposition in our organization. And when we develop that proposition, that's going to ultimately generate either better relationships or improve sales. And it's all about the bottom line. You're going to generate revenue from that perspective. And of course, we live in a world now that I would say is almost like a promiscuous shopper. What is loyalty? If you had to go and look in most people's wallet,
You know. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a weird market now. I was talking about this on a previous podcast where there was larger organizations like loyalty cards. So you've got Amy and Dud Humby back in the day who used to run customer insight and put some really interesting data out there to show who's buying what, why they're buying it. But I think that's significantly changed in this market now. I think whatever works. There's like in terms of brands, I don't know about you, but there's not many brands I'm like loyal to. There's brands I like. I love the brand Arc'teryx. I think they're one of the coolest brands out there when it comes to like clothing. You'll see me usually in an Arc'teryx jacket. And then they go and run a campaign a few weeks ago and blow up the side of, I think it was a mountain in Tibet, I think, with all sorts of fireworks and stuff. And it's just ruined an ecosystem. So you brand like that. I don't even know where to wear those jackets now. Otherwise I might get lynched in town because it was a pretty ridiculous stunt to pull. And they retracted quite quickly. But I don't know. What changes have you seen in industry over the last few years when it comes to brand loyalty for customers from an insight perspective?
I think it's more challenging now. I think definitely you'll still have the people that will go to Apple and worship at the altar of Apple and buy their iPhones and their products. And there is still an opportunity to create that loyalty. But we're in a market now where everything is very much price driven, whether that's because cost of living crisis, what's been going on over the last few years with COVID. We are looking at our bottom line and saying, okay, hold on, how much is that going to cost me? And if I don't get the return on my investment, you can bet your bottom dollar that the person's just going to drop them like a hot potato as soon as they go, okay, I've invested in you. It hasn't given me the experience, the customer experience that I wanted as a result of owning this product or taking this particular service. I'm going elsewhere. But it is far easier now to lose customers because there is so much competition. You don't have to stay with one particular brand. You don't have to stay with one particular service. In some areas you do, but for the most part, there is an alternative. And sometimes the alternative is actually better than the product that you were so wedded to. And you just go, oh, I just needed to particular product. But actually, this product's just as good. My experience is just as good.
Thanks, Chris. In terms of an organizational perspective, many organizations have more data than they know what to do with as well too. We're finding it more and more that there's organizations that really don't know how to get value from data. And we also get a lot of conversations as well too with the difference between having valuable data and using data as an asset as well too. In your opinion, why do you think so many organizations still struggle to get real value from data? And do you feel having data as an asset is a benefit right now in this current environment?
Yeah. Let me answer the last part of your question first. Data as an asset, definitely. I think the challenge for a lot of organizations is about infrastructure. So yes, there is data points, data being collected, but sometimes people within the organization don't understand potentially how or why it should be collected in the right way. There are lots of organizations where they have large volumes of data, but they can't market to it because they didn't collect the permission. We're in a world that the consumer understands their value to the organization. So you have to create some sort of value exchange with the consumer to say, okay, I'm going to exchange this for your data, which will give me the opportunity to bring products and services to you. So you have to get the permission right. And in a world that is proliferated with permission asked, of course, there's going to be fatigue. And of course, it's going to be more and more difficult to collect that permission of that individual or that consumer. So it's really important to make sure that you think about your approach on what is the rationale, what is the reason why you want to collect that information first and foremost. Is it relevant for what you are trying to achieve in terms of your strategy? Or are you collecting data for the sake of collecting data? What is the rationale? What is the point of collecting a name, an address, an email address? Is there any more relevant information that you need to collect, which is going to give you the opportunity to actually look at that data and say, okay, that data is relevant for our next strategy, campaign, marketing strategy, whatever it needs to be. The other side of the coin is that yes, there's lots and lots of data, but particularly a lot of their organizations carry technical debt. So data was collected in one particular platform, and you see this a lot for every organization. Another data set was collected in another platform. Invoicing sits on another different platform. So you've got all of these silos of data, and no one's built that single customer view. You can get hold of the data, you pull the data out of the various different systems, and you have your data scientists put it all together, merge it, fuzzy matching, whatever is required to bring that data to life. But it can be quite a lengthy process in a world where we need speed. If you want to react fast and you've got to try and get this data out from 4 or 5 different systems, you're not really responding in the way that the digital companies have set up. They've all been set up with a slightly more advantageous position because they always set out from a digital perspective, whereas organizations that are traditionally worked in the offline world, but bringing digital to their remit, they're still working with platforms that are housing data, which is difficult to get hold of. And yes, there's platforms out there that you can invest in. And there's various different types of customer data platforms that are being pushed by various different organizations out there. But I think that what makes it really challenging is everybody promises the world. Everybody says it will deliver this and this, and the reality might be slightly different. And then on top of that, you're asking for a very large investment from an organization where the return on investment might not be shown in the first or second year. It might take 3 or 4 years before you're able to return an investment on that big outlay for a new platform. And that's something that you've got to make sure that you have a good business justification to your senior leaders on that side of things, and how it's going to make our world a lot easier and better. If the data is clean, it's great. It's easy. It's straightforward. AI will come back with some very simple answers. We're dealing with lots and lots of unstructured data, so that yes, it can still speed up that process to make it structured, but then you've still got to fetch that data from several different data sources, and it might not be in the right format. So there's still a lot of work to be undertaken.
Is this what you mean by having data versus using data?
Yeah, so pretty much most organizations will have data. Some of it maybe not compliant. They've got it on Excel somewhere or in somebody's another drawer or something like that on their laptop. But most organizations will have access to data. However, it's how you utilize that data, whether that's for marketing as a first port of call is to go, how can we use this data to be more effective in our marketing message? That's one aspect. Then you go business strategy, which is the insight piece. How do I find out how my customers are behaving using that data, using those 3 points: recency of purchase, frequency of purchase, monetary value? All of a sudden you start to see, oh, there's some seasonality here in my purchase behavior from my consumers. Why have we got a fallow period at this time? And you might need to bring in secondary information or buy data from one of the third-party marketing services organizations to overlay onto the data that you've got. But all of those particular insight pieces will determine what your business strategy and your strategic direction will go. If all of a sudden you know that there's a small pot of people in your database that are spending X amount of money with you, you're going to go, I'm going to treat those guys differently to the ones that are not spending any money with us. So there's always data. It's just whether you're using it for marketing or insight or help you in developing your data strategy or your business strategy. That's where the data comes into its own. How you use it is determined by the insight and direction of the analyst.
Yeah, I think back in the GTB days, Chris, I definitely would have been using data to identify you as a top client based off spend. So yeah, you're getting the red carpet treatment. What I'm not too familiar with, and you've probably laughed at this because obviously I worked with you guys for years, but the marketing side was always not really a focus from our perspective. We focused on data first and then marketing second. So there's terminology, ways that marketing integrates with data that I'd like to explore slightly. And one of the topics was marketing operations as a growth engine. So for people like myself, for people less familiar, how would you define the role of marketing operations in 2025?
I think marketing operations as a department is very much it's a bit of a hybrid, essentially. You'd have your analytical department, you have your BI operations, those people are providing the business reports, you have your data scientists. In one side, you've got a customer insight, which is dealing with all the research material. And marketing operations is also about execution of campaign. We're bringing all of that information into one department. So we're having all the BI information, so we know how the company is performing, where are the opportunities for growth. You then have your data scientists looking at, okay, I built a churn model here. I've identified where we're likely to lose customers. Okay, great, good to know. Or it's the opposite effect. You go, I've built a high spend model to identify who our key spenders are. So either way, go from that side. And then you have the execution of that campaign through the marketing ops bit. So that might be using various different types of platforms to execute the campaign. But also within my team, we also manage governance, because most people will look at the insights, the BI information. We might be looking at an outbound telemarketing campaign. We might be providing data to a sales team. It might be data for a field sales operation. And then we're also supplying data for marketing. So think of it in the loop. You've got marketing, ensuring that the message is getting out there. Yep. You've got the contact center making the calls to people who might have seen the message. You've got the field sales operations going out and visiting that person is there to then enforce the message. So we're all singing off one voice. And that is initiated all from one particular department, which is the marketing operations.
It's a tough environment right now. It should be in this current marketplace, I would imagine, with all that going on at the same time. I think it used to be commonplace several years ago, from my experience with marketing operations. You would get calls, you would get emails, you would get people going door to door. Now I'm seeing, and we'll talk about this later on, but I'm seeing a lot more automated outreach. I get hundreds of sales emails a day on bad days. It's all outbound emails that are unsolicited and probably not anything to do with me, my role within the organization. It's really poorly formatted as well. And I'm also seeing more AI agents actually trying to get in touch, and you'll play about with them and respond and stuff, and they'll get back, and you might as well be talking to a person. But very little do you get a call from someone these days. Where back in the day, probably when we were working closely together, let's say 7-8 years ago, it'd be all outbound calls. Now it's all emails. People seem to be scared of human-to-human conversations now. We'll get back to that in a second, because that is going to be one of my next questions. But in terms of a success story where data's been married up with marketing operations, have you got any examples where that's worked really well and it's had measurable improvement in engagement or revenue for an organization?
Yeah, I think we've done, and certainly within my particular area, there's lots of different examples of success, but I can certainly say from a BI point of view, the business information report is reporting its revenue, but it's reporting a really high level of churn. Okay. And these people are leaving the business, not entirely sure why yet. It could be because of price, it could be because of product, it could become because of service. Not sure. All we know is that we've got a really high churn number. The second part of that is then, okay, can we understand why this churn is happening? What is it that we can see? Because the numbers are being reported. So we then engage the data scientists to look at the data. Is there any patterns that we can see in that data? We can see that people churn on a certain date or a certain behavior. Is that because what else we can see in the marketplace? Is there other offerings going on in the marketplace? Is it just driven by price? Is there something to do with our service, et cetera, et cetera? What can we do? So from that perspective, we're starting to building the insight based on the BI information. The data scientists will then start to look at that data and go, okay, we can start to see a pattern. If we can identify what the pattern is, we can then identify the opportunity to reduce that churn. And what I mean by that is that this is where we would then engage the marketing teams to say, we have seen that people are starting to leave us, and this particular time, we might have a license agreement, we might have a contract of some description. We know that these people are starting to leave the business 3 months before their contract ends. And a lot of the businesses that I've worked in previously, we didn't really have that engagement with our existing customers. We would sell them a product, sell them a service, and not talk to them until they come up to their end of their contract, like a lot of organizations. But we could see that there was an opportunity to engage with our customers earlier, much earlier than the end of contract date. And when we started to work with our marketing teams to put together a proposition on that, because it isn't just about the marketing message, we've got to have something tangible to say to those potential people who are looking to move. All that information would have been gathered via the data scientists to then use in the marketing material. And that's one of the operations that we did. We then provide that to the marketing. We collate the marketing message, what the proposition's going to be. We send that out to that particular audience that we think is going to churn. Certainly in the past, I've been able to reduce churn by a large enough percentage to make a material difference to the business. All of a sudden, it's, we should be doing this on a regular basis. What's our churn model for the next year? And so I think that's the reason why marketing operations works horizontally across all of those spheres, which is the reason why we don't have those silo skill sets anymore. It's very much, you're a bit of a generalist, but you're actually trying to stitch these data points, these data signals all together to then weave a story.
Yeah, it definitely brings on to my next question as well too, because it's around that ecosystem itself, the organizations that you surround yourself with when it comes to allocation. So from my experience, we don't work directly with MarTech tools. Talent professionals will have CRM systems that will have marketing functions within them to utilize. So we'll be getting probably more direct messaging from organizations in this space who want us to try and sell the well to you. As usual, being in marketing, we can automate these messages and get you more clients out of this, so we can allocate this your candidate database so you can easily search. The reality is it's never always the same. We can utilize AI, but it's always like an add-on. So that's my experience in that space. There's a marketing thread there, but I think my CEO Michael and myself and the rest of the team at MBN, we were our own best marketeers because we have to sell our own brand on usually platforms like LinkedIn. So limited knowledge, but in terms of like your world, in terms of MarTech tools specific to what you do, how should businesses really decide what's worth investing in now? Because there's just so much out there. And is the AI route the right route right now?
I think that is a really good question, because it's extremely challenging to be out there in the marketplace. You can speak to the various platforms out there, whether it's Adobe, Salesforce, IBM's product. There's so much choice out there, but I think what you have to do is really think about what are the objectives? What is it that you want to achieve? Because you can start off and get really excited and go, we want to do everything. We want personalization. We want automation. We want trigger-based marketing tools. We want to be able to segment our audiences in a variety of different ways. We want to be able to have the CRM system that is completed by the individual that pops up the information at the contact center. All of this is achievable, okay? But is it what you really want to achieve? If it is as simple as we just want to be able to engage with our customers, we want to be able to know what is their contract they're currently on, what product are they on, what is the length of their contract, what other potential services we could potentially sell from a phone call that we list into our thing. Keep it simple but scalable. So from my perspective, I would always go, what is it that you want to do? And everybody always talks about the art of the possible. The art of the possible can be very expensive, but you can look at it from a very simple lens and go, I want to be able to achieve X first and foremost before I go to Y, Z. I need to be able to deliver on this, but it needs to be able to be scalable. Whatever you're taking, you don't want to get to a situation that you're then rooted in a system that is not scalable. So from my perspective, I would always go, I want a simple solution, particularly if I'm a small organization, small outfit, but I want it to be scalable. So I'd always advise start with simple scalability. I've been in those meetings with lots of providers, and even myself, I'd probably said, I want to be able to do this and all of this. And then I get back and I go, yeah, but we only want to do this.
Yeah, it can be overcomplicated. We use a software that video records messages to prospective clients. It then tracks if the prospective clients clicked on the link, how many times they've clicked on it. It's all really cool stuff, but it can be clunky to use. And all I'm really doing is recording a 30-second video of myself. So why am I not just using my iPhone and then just sending that? And it's the same model, and I'm going to get it. Whether they're interested or not, they're going to get back to me, or they're not going to get back to me. The outcome, just because I see someone clicking on it and the analytics behind it, yes, it helps, but fundamentally, it's still going to be, if they're not going to get back, they're not going to get back. I definitely get the examples of what we use. You can really over specialize. We're being quite careful with the utilization of AI in our approach because it's a human-centered business. So if you're a human-centered organization, your customer, you will be, because your customers are people, hopefully. And if you remove that marketing piece within AI, you can see through it within minutes. So there's got to be a balance here. So how do you see AI and automation reshaping the role of marketing operations in the next few years? Because surely it's going to be more of a synergy as opposed to just a complete taking over.
Yeah, no, I don't see AI needs people. That's fundamentally. And what I mean by that, it needs a driver. It needs somebody to give it direction. I see it as a tool that can enhance and help organizations optimize their marketing capability, some of their efficiencies, operational efficiencies. We use it pretty much daily in our day-to-day ways of working, and it's certainly brought some significant benefit in the ways that are working in making certainly my department more efficient. And so whereas areas we're spending, I don't know, maybe half a day doing some data prep work, we can do that in maybe 15 minutes now. That means that person's got more time to think of other areas of their ways of working that they can think about and go, that's a manual, mundane task. How can I automate that from a day-to-day side of things? From an efficiency point of view, I think it's got to be in collaboration with your other marketing tools and support that we have. It's not one size fits all. We're in a world that, as you've mentioned, people can spot the AI function pretty much straight away, some of the bad ones anyway. If you don't have a lot of time and you're trying to reach somebody just to get information, particularly technical information, AI is great because you can ask the question and get the technical answer, particularly if you're in a world of technology. If it is more customer service, the likelihood is that you might be able to have the AI understand what the issues are, what the questions are from the human, and then flag up to the person on the other line as the call gets transferred to a human to then be able to deal with that particular call more effectively. We've all been on those calls where you're all people.
Yeah. I'm working with an organization that's actually they work within customer experience and contact center transformation, technological implementation of that too. It's obvious and it's universal too, because everyone's had a bad experience in a call center, either working for one. I definitely worked in one when I was younger, just after I left uni, and at the other end of it as well, as a customer or consumer, where you get, like you said, you get bounced from pillar to post, where you're just looking for a simple answer. Personal situation, working with insurance right now as well, horrendous experience, where you have a simple problem and there should be a solution at the end of it, but you're waiting weeks and weeks, or conversations just get bounced back, or information gets missed, crucial information that can cause delays. So I think that's not the industry we're talking about right now. Obviously, it's a great example of how AI could potentially, I think, easily not replace but benefit that side of a business. When it comes to marketing, I can see a similar environment, especially for outbound, especially for not recommendation to its smart recommendation, because again, like algorithms on things like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, they don't really, unless you like it, like that post or reel, whatever, an algorithm doesn't really understand if you're interested or not, really. You could just watch something and you're like, I don't like that. You might be hate watching it. I do that quite a lot. I'm going to watch that to annoy myself. And then all of a sudden it sends you more and more content of things you actually don't like. So AI might be able to, in a marketing context, understand the intricacies of what actually is not annoying, what you actually like, and how you can push that forward to a customer or consumer. So I think that's probably where it's going. But just to come back to the questions, what advice would you give to leaders who feel overwhelmed by the complexity of AI utilization within marketing and within data and technology?
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier is fear and being overwhelmed by the need, because the buzzword is AI, and we can see that AI is doing some great stuff. So as a leader, you want to embrace it, but you want to be able to embrace it in the right way, because there is so much information out there. You can basically just keep on grabbing onto sort of lots and lots of different aspects of AI. So leaders need to be able to demystify that aspect, I think, from their own perspective, and go and just trying to see, okay, what is it that I want to achieve? What is the burning problem that I have at this moment in time? And how can AI solve that, or help me solve that particular issue? Because otherwise you could end up just trying to go, I'm grabbing that AI, I'm grabbing that AI. And essentially, let's start small. So don't think I need to achieve everything with AI. It's more of a case of, okay, what is it that I can utilize AI step by step? It can help me improve my marketing capability in this particular aspect. Let's start there. And it will lead on to the...
Definitely. And it's still early days as well, too. Things move so quickly that I would hate to be in a position where you are, or might be in the next few months. It's all about tool allocation when it comes to AI. What do you pick? How do you, because within 3 months, that could completely be the defunct or not suitable to the wider strategic picture for what you're looking to achieve. So it's a weird environment. But I think in it that there is an element of maturity as well too. I think in probably less than 6 months, 6 to 12 months, we're probably going to have more of an understanding of what good looks like, and where organizations, and specifically within marketing analytics, can point the finger in with utilization for AI. But it's changing daily, so it's an exciting time. In terms of, we've talked a lot about culture within organizations, and it was specifically within teams. We've obviously, I personally supported you helping hire data professionals in your team. Culture's always been at the heart of what you look for at Sky, at GTB, and technology is always, it's important, but it's definitely not a be all and end all. And I think you've taken a few chances on candidates based on culture for us, and they've worked out really well. Sometimes it can be the other way around. I know that, but we've had a clean sheet with you. So my question would be more regarding culture. What's the biggest barriers to creating culture right now in this current market, considering you've got just like working from home is huge now. So that must have an impact on how you make your team and how you embed your team and how it becomes a data-driven culture right now as well too. It's little things like that. Is there anything you could advise on there?
I think from my perspective, the way that I've always gone about in terms of developing culture within my team, yes, there is the organizational culture. That's one aspect, and you get that top down. But from my perspective, when I take chances on people, if I'm recruiting or building a team, the key thing that I brought is curiosity. And when you go through the interview process, and sometimes we give some tricky questions in the interview, I don't want people to give me an answer. I don't understand that. What is this? Explain this to me. What are you trying to achieve? What does that question mean? What is the objective of that particular question? And then from the curiosity, it's then storytelling, and using that data to then tell the story so that it's understood right across the spectrum of people that you might be working with, from senior leadership team to operational managers, that they understand that it isn't just about the numbers, it's about the story that you're trying to tell. The culture that I try to develop is one that people are not afraid to ask questions, to challenge themselves. I always have this thing where you ask as many questions as you want, and then I'll go to the end and I said, okay, what's the extra question? What's the extra question at the end that you need to ask that I haven't answered or you haven't got as information? Because invariably, whenever you're talking with people outside of data, they will give you a flavor of what they want. And then if you don't ask those questions, and be curious, you end up delivering something. So for me, the culture is always about, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a silly or stupid question. You really just want to be able to be curious and go, oh yeah, if I do analysis and I go down this particular path, what is that going to show me? It could be nothing, or it could be something. Whenever I go abroad, I always go into supermarkets. It's just one of these things, just to see how consumers are behaving, but also how they have their aisles set up in their particular stores, because each country I've been to, they're slightly different.
And that's an interesting way of putting it. I definitely don't. I like going to supermarkets abroad just to see what food they've got so I can scoff it. Yeah, we've definitely got different priorities. But no, great. In terms of, and again, I'm just going into like trends moving forward, not just, we're talking about like people culture there, but it still applies to data-driven culture too. But over the next few years, we know AI's, again, people are getting sick of it already talking about AI, but it's coming, or it is already here, and it's going to be embedded, or it will be embedded within marketing data very soon, and it's going to play more of a role over the next few years. But this is probably a silly question because it's so much is going to change, but what shifts do you think will define the future of data and marketing operations, let's say between the next, I was going to say 5 years, but let's just say 3 years, because 5's crazy.
I think there's a number of different aspects to approach this. We already know that the consumer is very savvy about their data. So for them to give away their data freely may become even more of a challenge, which is the reason why you've got the likes of Google, Meta, and Apple really strong. Amazon, they're really strong in this particular space because they've got all of this information collected. They've got all of the behaviors of that data collected. Organizations outside of those particular walled gardens will have to work with them in order to be able to communicate with their customers, to generate effective marketing, whether it's digital, using AI behavior. So it's going to become hyper-personalized, I think, in some respects. I don't know whether you remember that scene in Minority Report where the character, what's his name?
Tom Cruise.
It's the other Tom.
Movie.
Tom Cruise is walking through the shopping mall and the Gap store recognizes him. And then all of a sudden it starts to talk to him about what he purchased and that there's a new line of brown trousers or something that's coming in. So that hyper personalization is going to be coming in some form, which we may embrace or we may reject.
It's definitely already here. I remember years ago there was an app I used to use that used AI to recommend what clothes, based on your style, based on what you like to wear, recommend outfits, because most blokes are horrendous for putting stuff together. And it was great, it worked. And I remember talking to an AI pioneer at the time, and he had a similar app. And he was like, do you use that app? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're probably the only person I know who uses it. I was like, it works. Look, yes, it's good to go. And he's like, the jury's out on that. And the amount of analogies from like a film like Minority Report, the whole screen thing, and it's already here. Yeah. But we are definitely, if not, that's coming. Like,
digital ID. There are governments talking about digital IDs.
I'm trying to keep politics away from this show, but you'll bring the gammon out of me on that one.
No, but we're already carrying a mobile phone. So the mobile phone is already your ID to a large extent.
Exactly. And the fear is, like, what is too much personalization? How much do you want these AI tools, technologies, products to know about you? You know, and it could put people in weird situations as well too. So there's definitely an ethics side that needs to be robust and in place before this stuff comes.
But this is where we talk about, we've got to make sure they've got the right governance in place.
Yeah.
And AI is probably moving so quickly that our legal teams are still trying ethically, legally.
Yeah.
What is the right?
It's being a European nation, it's beneficial in that regards because there's a lot of authorization and rights and responsibilities that need to be put forward first. However, it puts us on the back foot. I don't know about you. I'd rather be protected first than before this stuff gets rolled out, because the consequences would be very detrimental to society. But yeah, again, that's another conversation for another day. Is there anything you think our listeners could potentially like implement tomorrow, for instance, to make themselves more data driven?
I think if you're in an organization where you are sitting siloed from your data team, I would immediately try and get your data team and your commercial team and your marketing team sitting together.
Yeah.
That is the first thing that I would do, just to ensure that you've got good collaboration between the teams. So from my perspective, the first thing that I could do as a leader is to just ensure that you've got good collaboration between the teams and don't have them sitting separately. Have somebody from the data working with the marketing team, working with the data. That's how you drive a data-driven culture through the business.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the age-old, same in our organization, sales and marketing. It's like chalk and cheese. Sometimes you just...
Yeah.
It's the same goal. Being a sales guy, and sometimes I'm just not built for it. So it doesn't compute. Having that integration and understanding is important. It definitely would be for a data and marketing function as well, to an operational function. Chris, absolute pleasure having you on today. Really appreciate your insights. Really unique perspective from a marketing specialist like yourself, and not just a data specialist, which you are as well too. And I didn't know you were into film music videos back in the day, so we're going to need to have a talk about that at some point. Years I've known you, that would have been a topic of interest. But but how can people get hold of you, Chris, if they want to reach out and speak to you?
I'm on LinkedIn. If they want to speak to me, I'm available as like you, I get a lot of calls, AI, normally inviting me to lots of dinners and lunches or whatever it is. But if somebody wants to, genuinely reach out, happy to entertain it.
I don't get many of them, so lucky you. Usually it's just people trying to sell me stuff. So yeah, fair play. Chris, great, absolute pleasure having you on board. Hopefully we can see you again on the pod, and have a good time. Cheers.